Yes. I know. What is up, you muffin munching muggles? Welcome back to Fiction and Reality, where we help you, yes, you, become the most devilishly gifted human that you know you are, and that you knew you always could be. So, I hear you want to learn how to write about emotion, sadness,
I don't understand why you keep picking me.
happiness.
Santa's coming to town! Santa! Oh my god! Santa here?
Anger. Madness.
何にも変わってねえなお前は何にもできねえじゃねえかよ何にも
Emotions are at the crux of what makes your character who he/she is. What truly makes describing emotion a strenuous task is making them resonate in symphony with the reader. That is, making them sincere, credible, and genuine. When you can invoke emotion from your reader, whether that be through a giggle, chuckle, or sometimes shedding a tear, simply through the medium of emotion, then you know that you've achieved the desired effect. Now first, I want to talk about some mistakes and flesh some of the most common ones out, particularly telling and not showing. You want to get to the point in your writing where you're able to illustrate the emotion you're seeking to convey without directly using the word. Now, what exactly does that mean? When you want to convey that, say, a character is sad, we can set the scene. Maybe there's frowning gray clouds looming overhead, sluggishly sifting by, mirroring Jake's pain and sorrow. Or maybe we can go deeper. That prior example would be an example of telling. This next one would be an example of showing. Jake took to the bourbon dust sky, the burn of ash shedding on his tongue. His eyes were stinging with something. Maybe the acrid alcohol drops from his father's fist, or from the brass iron heel of his boot. Where was he to look for freedom? The gray clouds mirrored ash, sogging mush with water, swelling slowly like the slick tears in the back of his throat. Swelling, the glacier's drops drizzled into a dusty spiraling sky, weeping with cold drops that masqueraded his own. That would be an example of showing. But why can't I just say happy or sad or yeah? Well, does saying happy or sad or angry make you feel anything? No, because words mean nothing without action. So how do you get better at describing/writing emotion? Well, I would say that the first and foremost, most primary method is through introspection. It allows you to speak from the character's perspective. First, we should define it. Now, what is introspection? It's an intense journey within one's thoughts, often mind expanding or self-centered. You tap into some direct experience, which doesn't necessarily have to be traumatic, but I don't know if that's sort of the method you're going for, then yeah, you can make it as traumatic as you want it to be. Discern and ferret out what emotion you want to exude. Then map that back to the individual's experience. For example, say we're describing someone, Todd, who's sitting at a bar chumming down a piece of candy. Instead of saying that the piece of candy was a sweet wonderment or tangy delight and made him think of his childhood, maybe we can go a bit deeper. Of course, given that the moment warrants it. Todd, a lone soul, shanty and splintered, eyes as sagging and worn as the bar he was sitting at. The fleas buzz louder than the flickering bowl. He digs in his pocket until the crinkle of chocolate rattles about his ears. He wrinkles it from his wrapper, then tosses it in his mouth. It was flowery, bitter, where it should have been gush and honey milk sweet. As a child, he and his friends of Ragjean Boys after the buses had departed, would run through the school halls, silently slipping back into the torturous classroom dungeon, swiving from their teacher's candy jar as much chocolate drops that they could possibly stuff into their pockets and pants, leaving not even a wrapper to spare. But for once, he thought, while sitting at the bar, that maybe the sweet glaze was piercing through, faint but present. Maybe it was him and not the taste that changed, that longed for the syrupy, sprightly drops of youth. He was a man now, and the acrid bitter burn of alcohol was drowning out the sweet honey notes of his former years. Let's attempt to look inward. Remember, you want your readers to think that your character is more than just a name on a paper. You want them to shingle the emotional links, forge a bond between the reader and the character strong enough to ignite their desire to track that character's journey from chapter to chapter, and hopefully follow their crusade from book to book. Now, you're really going to want to spend some time on perfecting this to your liking. I know I did, and I still haven't perfected it. Understand that introspection doesn't limit itself to recall, but can also speak inwardly through philosophy and thoughts. Through those thoughts, you can play on emotion. A good rule of thumb that I set for myself when acting on this is that if a sentence I write doesn't make me chuckle, fear, the slightest hint of disdain, anger, rage, or sadness, or whatever emotion I'm trying to evoke, then it most likely won't evoke any emotion from the reader either. And of course, if you simply don't feel any emotion at all, no matter what you do, no matter what you write, then you could possibly be a sociopath. Maybe you should throw your book in the fire. Say hello to Dahmer and Gacy for me. Of course, next we can try setting the tone, which can be accomplished through the environment, dialogue between characters, introspection, just like we talked about. Employ your setting and utilize it to its maximum potential, right? Figure out how to speak through your environment before speaking through your characters. Paint a picture that shows and doesn't tell. By doing this, you can establish a mood. For example, maybe you describe a chestnut warm furnace furling a spruce cabin sweet cedar notes that spool around chasing the flickering embers of the furnace. Maybe this embellishes the reader with a sense of warmth, peace, and solid. Maybe you go a different route where your character is a teenager, bristling beet hot red with rage while the flames furl in their eyes. The sifting scent of sour cedar crinkles up their nose as they envision their cowardice king of a father reading to them by the flames, while all the rest of their union rings with bullets, clings with swords, and plumes with gun smoke, and the pound of horse hooves charging into a valley of dead men. As you can see, there's so much you can do with the slightest precipice of an idea. It's simply up to you to breathe life into it through your own style of writing and creativity. Now we can move on to sensory language. It's that smell. Always use sensory language. Touching, smelling, hearing, all these work in tandem to create a more holistic picture. Let's think. If you say someone is crying, then, well, okay, they're crying. So what? But if the tears are stinging their eyes and the mucus is sliming down the back of their throat, then the expression of those tactile senses have achieved their goal of threading in the relatable sensation of crying. Of course, sensory language and introspection are neither by themselves the driving force of emotion, but rather they coalesce with other writing elements such as metaphor, simile, verbiage to sculpt and cultivate its framework. Reinforce the emotional bonds between your characters and readers, so the emotion you're trying to elicit is that much more sincere and genuine. And you can achieve this by combining both introspection and sensory language. Try to think relative to the character that you're portraying, right? Remember, they're not just a name on paper. They're an individual. They have their own personality. They have their own interests. They have their own experiences. Draw from that. And instead of thinking, what does the emotion look like? Try asking yourself, what does it feel like? And see your writing kind of flourish and blossom. And to achieve this pillar of mastery, try adopting an emotional encyclopedia to upgrade your sensory language. For an example, something I use is The Emotional Thesaurus by Angela Ackerman, right? And this book comes to the rescue by highlighting 75 emotions listing the possible body language cues, thoughts, and visceral responses for each. Using its easy to navigate list format, readers can draw inspiration from characters that range in intensity to match any emotion. This is a bread and butter and bread resources for enriching and refining your vocab. And it's something that I took advantage of like the moment I started writing, about, let's say, a few weeks in, right? But you don't have to use a book. You can also use other resources online, right? There's lists that people just create, public forums that you can take advantage of. Always look for the opportunity to cultivate a robust vocabulary. It allows you to be more dynamic in choosing which direction you want to veer your story in. Though most writers have their own routines of writing, it makes their writing appear fresh and unpredictable to the reader, encouraging them to flip over to the next page. Also, your use of verbiage is instrumental in scaling the sincerity of the emotion that you're trying to express. Pushing a desk is octaves different from shoving a desk. Hitting someone, right, is different from smacking or punching them. Check out some strong verb dictionaries, and you can find those all over the interwebs, right? Refine your melting pot of verbiage and spin it into something that'll help you refine your ability to express the emotion that it is you're trying to evoke. Emotion is one of the most prominent pillars supporting the foundation of your story. And without it, your story is as soulless as you are. So what are you waiting for? Why are you still here? Get out there. Get out there. Get glad. Get happy. Get mad. Angry. Wrathful. Jealous. And wrangle the reins of your emotion to your will. With that, I hope that you found this helpful in some way. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Be sure to tell me what part of writing emotion has been the most daunting for you. I will leave a link to my social medias in the description below, and you check them out. I ain't asking you, I'm telling you. With that, remember, if ever you were lost in a forestry of words, strip your mind from fantasy and look to the window of the world. And there your mind will run free.